you did not see this coming from Dungeons & Dragons. I don't care what you say in the comments. No, you didn't. The first mature-rated 18-plus book for D&D 5th edition? This is D&D by Hasbro, the children's toy company. And that's just the beginning, my friend. Then, the wild news you did see coming. As much as many hardcore D&D fans may have wished this day would never come. It's D&D Universes Beyond, the same crossover brand collaboration initiative used by D&D's sister company, Magic the Gathering, which many hardcore Magic fans say has been overused in recent years. But nobody predicted the out-of-this-world crossover, which we'll discuss at the end of the video. I'm sure it's in the comments, or I might have put it in the dang thumbnail. Just come on this journey with me. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and these two stories come from the D&D 2027 roadmap of exciting news and some totally normal D&D news just revealed at Gen Con, the biggest tabletop RPG convention in the US, where at the last minute, I was invited to play in a live game related to one of these announcements. Obviously, I'm not there, so we'll talk about that in a minute too. I'm starting with this news that surprised me the most, while still making sense. It didn't shake my worldview entirely. The mature D&D book is the return of Dark Sun, one of D&D's most popular campaign settings, first published in 1991. 35 years ago, wow. And to be fair, yeah, many D&D fans, myself included, predicted that Dark Sun could make a comeback. Recent playtest material strongly hinted at it, and a few years ago, I made a video about my own predictions, but also discussing why Dark Sun wouldn't make sense for the D&D brand today. It is infamous for its brutality, for its wide departure from the Tolkien-style familiar fantasy of D&D, and for its gruesome themes of things I was going to list out, but YouTube might not understand this is a fictional context. Let's just say D&D's Dark Sun setting is known for including the ownership of persons as a normalized part of the economy, the eating of persons normalized among at least one ethnic group, and a historical period called the Cleansing Wars, which kind of speaks for itself. However, Dark Sun isn't just an edgelord's paradise. It made waves for being one of the first major settings to entirely omit the gods of D&D, to limit magic in place of psionic powers, to limit the character ancestries and classes available to players, and initially, all Dark Sun books followed the striking art direction of a single artist known as Braum, whose artwork is rather edgy. Braum is also the name I randomly came up with for my first ever D&D character. Not exactly relevant, but a fun fact. So what does the new D&D Dark Sun look like? Still quite brutal. By now, there's an animated trailer floating around that opens with heavy drums, gore splatter, and a person gripped by the eye socket having their head and upper spine slowly pulled from their body. Obviously, I'm not showing that in full, but there's a link to the announcement presentation below. My other notes on the trailer include warrior with bony lances for arms impaling other warrior through mouth, giant beetle with glowing central eye slashing warrior's throat, psionic cranial tendrils attack two topless warriors who explode. D&D executive producer Greg Bilzan said, "The lawyers actually told us we had to shrink wrap this thing and put a big warning on it." So, skipping right over how the new official Dark Sun tagline is written in ChatGPT lingo, Athas isn't the world you save, it's the world you survive, D&D is not pulling punches. When asked why now bring back Dark Sun, Bilzan said they've done a lot of market research and many people are asking for this kind of material. So the book will include both narrative and mechanical options that raise the maturity level. Specifically, he mentioned decapitation rules. So we can assume player characters might actually face consequences in D&D combat, and the book's cover seems to back that up, featuring a dragon perhaps psionically eviscerating and bisecting and otherwise mutilating multiple people in a blast of energy. And the second book in the set shows our trailer warrior proudly holding that head and spine. What a neatly bookended story. So, on the raw product side, the D&D Dark Sun set coming in 2027 will include a map pack, DM screen, and 3 books. Quote, almost 500 pages of new content. We got Blood and Power, the gameplay expansion for players with a new Scion class, Edge of Oblivion, the DM setting guide, and a limited edition D&D Player's Handbook with alternate Dark Sun artwork. I think they're just talking about the cover. And now personally, I'm never one to be drawn to a piece of media merely on the promise of excessive gore. It's just kind of not my style. Sure, I grew up, like many of you watching, blasting off faces in war-loving first-person shooters, getting awards in Halo like Killtacular and Vehicular Manslaughter. I still remember the sound of the chainsaw guns in Gears of War. I played hundreds of hours of those violent games because the gameplay was fun and because I just loved playing whatever my friends were playing. So, to use ChatGPT phrasing, Dark Sun doesn't grab my attention because I love gratuitous violence. It grabs my attention because, for as long as I've been in the TTRPG hobby, official D&D hasn't produced anything of this nature. So after that initial shock value, what maintains my attention on this Dark Sun project as the standout D&D product for 2027 for me is the lore. Dark Sun's world, Athas, both sounds and looks ripe for sparking the modern fantasy gamer's imagination almost as well as Brahms' famous edgy artwork that brought it to life 35 years ago. I can easily picture this setting for a future D&D video game if someone get Larian Studios on the phone. And I think most folks can relate to the setting's other tagline, stories of survival and resistance in the face of tyranny, whoever you perceive the tyrants of our world today to be. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, before we rapid fire through the 7 other D&D news stories from that announcement presentation so we can finally yap about what might happen with D&D Universes Beyond, a quick word from this video's sponsor. Describe, a long-standing, award-winning collection of descriptions, maps, and audio used by thousands of game masters and players. Seriously, for longer than some editions of D&D, Describe has provided an ever-growing collection of now 16,000 box text descriptions for every location, monster, NPC, magic item, and more, all written by humans to give your games a lot more immersion with a lot less prep. But they also have maps with every part tied to a description, and Opus, a browser app for custom or pre-made collections of music, ambient tracks, and sound effects, which you can even stream online to your players. With over 8,000 total sounds today, Describe teamed up with the guy who developed the Avre Discord bot for D&D Beyond to make searching for the right track easier than ever. So check out Describe and Opus using the link below and code BOB for an extended free trial. Next big story, this guy. Actor Joe Manganiello, known to D&D fans for his guest appearance in the finale of Critical Role Season 1, for hosting what he calls Hollywood's premier D&D group, for creating a metal-inspired D&D clothing line called Death Saves, and for being the world's, literally, biggest fan of D&D's classic setting, Dragonlance. Mr. Manganiello is now the Chief Creative Officer of a new initiative called D&D Icons. Quoting from the press release, the goal is to bring together legendary creators with the current design team to help shape future content. We're excited to launch Icons with Luke Gygax, who will be working in Greyhawk, even including content from Gary Gygax's unreleased notes. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman working on Dragonlance, and R.A. Salvatore from The Legend of Drizzt. We are thrilled to work with these creators, but this is just the beginning of this exciting program, and who knows who we might bring to the table. Yeah, dang, that's incredible news, especially to have a Gygax working on official D&D for the first time in decades. But my first question was, no Ed Greenwood, the still living, still writing creator of the Forgotten Realms, the most popular D&D setting of all time, the basis for 5e, for the D&D movie, for Baldur's Gate 3? Apparently not at this time, but someone else is working on the Forgotten Realms. We'll get there. The next story also comes from Mr. Manganiello. The Blood War has ended. The forces of darkness won. Gods lie dead in droves, the world hangs on by a thread. Join my band of god killers as we take the battle to the doorstep of the Demon Lords in the first ever live play for the newest Dungeons & Dragons Black Label dark fantasy setting, Death Saves. Yes, named after his metal-inspired D&D clothing line. Talk about a lifestyle brand. By the way, they got Braum Dark Sun art for Joe's t-shirts, but not for Dark Sun? Go figure. And another fun fact, very relevant, that's the game in that post. I was invited to play in that, but not until maybe like 3 weeks before the con, and I already wasn't planning to go this year. People buy tickets 6 months ahead of time for this. So kinda huge missed opportunity, maybe a dodged bullet, unless this high-stakes dark fantasy session needed the comic relief of me absolutely embarrassing myself for being mostly ignorant of the character abilities of mid-level official D&D. It was for the best. Also, as you see on the cover, this game material was developed in part by Mike Merles, co-lead designer of D&D 5e. So not part of the Icons line, it seems, but obviously another highly influential designer coming back. But one more thing about this cover, I think it's drawn by the same hand as an artist heavily featured in Shadowdark. It could just be the same style, and in either case, that sums up my 2 cents for this new D&D setting. The inherently dark and punk nature of this aesthetic will likely appeal to fans who mostly play games like Shadowdark, Morkborg, perhaps Pirateborg too. But I feel like those fans appreciate their games being made by independent artists, not by Megacorp Hasbro, a children's toy company. So look, I'm sure this Death Saves book will sell very well, especially in conjunction with the mature themes now coming from, I guess, mainline D&D with the Dark Sun book, but I'm curious how its popularity will compare with the other D&D projects just announced here. Similarly, next up, Greyhawk, Crown of the Witch Queen. It will be a, quote, villain-focused campaign centered on Drelnza, the vampire daughter of Igwilv, better known as the famous D&D witch Tasha, as she seeks to claim her birthright. We know this one will be a 160-page hardcover book with a map pack and DM screen, and that's all the facts we got for this Greyhawk book, but news earlier this year covered Luke Gygax's other official D&D project, Melf's Guide to Greyhawk, Melf being Luke's original character when playtesting D&D with his father, D&D co-creator Gary Gygax, in the 1970s. You might know the name from the spell Melf's Acid Arrow. So like Dark Sun, Greyhawk came well before my time in the hobby, but the concept of these books, this one really, warms my heart. Luke Gygax is getting the opportunity to revive a piece of his own father's legacy with never-before-seen material from him, all in an official capacity. So if nothing else, these projects, and really Greyhawk, feels like an important marker in the timeline of D&D history. And it makes me wonder if they'll try to reproduce Blackmore and, honor the other co-creator of D&D, Dave Arneson, who is so rarely even mentioned, but that's another video. Now, let's actually rapid fire through a few things. D&D Beyond updates include a new mobile app, rebuilding the search function, which is huge because search has been bad forever, new DM prep tools like Scene Manager and bookmarking, and the big one, Looking for Group, allowing users around the world to search for local D&D events, rebuilding the D&D Discord server with a dedicated group finder, and D&D Beyond partnering with Start Playing to seamlessly connect new players with professional DMs online for a limited time, only 99 cents for their first game. Low-key, this is the biggest announcement in this video because this is the kind of wide-reaching work that only D&D by Hasbro can pull off, and it supports and uplifts the entire tabletop RPG industry. This initiative is what makes it easier for players everywhere to experience this wonderful hobby, and I love to see it. Next, the upcoming D&D video game Warlock will have gameplay shown for the first time at Gamescom in a few weeks, and they announced that the titular Warlock character's patron is none other than Tasha, that famous witch from Greyhawk. Arcana Unleashed and Deadfall are two new D&D books coming very soon. The first is a 160-page gameplay expansion with this list of stuff you can see on the screen. Then the Deadfall book is an adventure where heroes can face off against the legendary lich Zastam and the Red Wizards of Thay featured in the D&D movie. Notably, this adventure covers levels 11 to 20. Wow! I mean, I'm never going to play it, but I love to see D&D actually using all 20 levels of their game for once. Like, you made them all. And they say they don't publish adventures of those levels because people just redid the rules 2 years ago, not included those levels, or cut it down to 15, I don't know. And if you're wondering how D&D could possibly produce enough adventures to continue supporting all these different settings, the answer is outsourcing. D&D is partnering with several renowned indie 5e publishers to produce annual adventure installments for its major campaign settings, such as The Forgotten Realms in the hands of Kobold Press. I don't know if they can loop in Ed Greenwood, but that would be cool to see. I'm sure they'll do great regardless. Eberron, handled by Visionary Productions, which I had not heard of, but I do believe that involves Eberron's original creator, Keith Baker. And Ravenloft, in the dark fantasy fingies of Ghostfire Gaming. I watch their podcast like every week, so if nothing else, I've got a parasocial bond with some of them, and it makes me happy to see Ghostfire getting this kind of opportunity. They're gonna nail it. And D&D says there will be more to come as they loop in other publishers to support other settings. Now, here's the actual roadmap. We've covered all but one thing. And they said some spots are blank because they wanted to leave surprises, and I suspect that timelines aren't fully locked in for some projects later in 2027, but here's the other big story. Or maybe a small story with gargantuan implications, depending on how you look at this. D&D Universes Beyond. Starting with World of Warcraft, no, that's not the Out of This World crossover, we'll cover that extremely soon. And yeah, the Warcraft connection was leaked about a week ago, so if you're really tuned in, you already knew about this, but not the fact that this is the first installment of Universes Beyond. And thank God for D&D's sake anyway. If people had seen that name leaked early, days and days before the official announcement, speculation would have run absolutely wild. Even now, I fully suspect, I am not a betting man, but I would put money on multiple Outrage Mill RPG channels using factual language to say that D&D SpongeBob is coming next year. So here's what we actually know for sure. D&D World of Warcraft is a pretty normal D&D project. 256-page book, 11 new species and 5 updated species, so you got every option from WoW. 6 new subclasses and 3 updated ones for everything from WoW. Iconic locations across Azeroth, including 7 dungeons not yet announced. Iconic characters from WoW's history, 26 magic items, 60 plus new spells, 23 factions with renowned rewards, professions, mounts, companion creatures, and more, a map pack, a standard cover edition of the book, a hobby store cover, which looks really cool, and a collector's slipcase cover with, Horde on one side, Alliance on the other. All in all, a pretty normal looking D&D product. But let's talk about what this could mean for D&D. The number one concern of many DMs out there is that just like Universes Beyond has done to Magic the Gathering, these crossover releases will introduce unbalanced and frankly ridiculous player options to the game and ultimately make it harder to play by the game's own rules. Now, according to the project lead, James Wyatt, this WoW D&D material was playtested through their typical Unearthed Arcana process as well as a secret Arcana playtest under NDA, including some staff from Blizzard, the producers of World of Warcraft. As someone who hasn't read a D&D playtest doc in years, that sounds thorough to me, and I appreciate the connection reaching out to the people who created the source material. But I know some troublesome options have fallen through the typical Unearthed Arcana process before. Silvery barbs. I think the best thing this project has going for it is that the project lead, James Wyatt, is both a self-described superfan of WoW and I think he's the eldest designer at D&D these days. Most experienced might have been a more polite way to put that, you know what I mean. So this all sounds like exactly the kind of person I'd want to be leading a Universes Beyond project combining official D&D and World of Warcraft if I were a fan of WoW and if I had played D&D by the book. So I think this one, totally fine, safe, normal, nothing to worry about. And I'd go as far as to say anyone who is worried about this project isn't paying attention to the details here. Therefore, the real question, which will unravel into so much speculation, is, will future D&D UB projects also be matches made in heaven between the core game, the lead designer, and the new material? Or will they be matches made like D&D SpongeBob? According to D&D executive producer Greg Bilzand, who clearly knew he needed to offer this disclaimer in the press release, quote, "One thing I want to get out in front of is we, as you can tell, are looking here to not only have all Universes Beyond, or all non-Universes Beyond like Dark Sun. What we're looking to do is create a really delicate balance between our content that is Universes Beyond, that makes sense, that we are hand-picking to ensure that it's a great experience like WoW, which I think people will say just makes sense." Sidebar, yes, I clearly agree with that part. So we're going to continue along with our IPs that we've created and then move forward into a couple of Universes Beyond as well. So we're making sure to balance that and not give too much of one thing, not leaning all the way in. We've had some great learning lessons from our friends across the office doors with Magic the Gathering and how we can best create Universes Beyond in a meaningful way without over-indexing. So, we already know we're getting a couple more hand-picked UB projects, and that last line about taking lessons from Magic is either a great sign or a bad omen or unclear, depending on how well you know Magic's experience and whether or not you like how they've handled it. What I've heard, both from industry folks and Magic fans, is that Universes Beyond not only makes a ton of money when connecting hugely popular brands to it, but also brings in tons of new players to Magic the Gathering, many of whom stick around. They become fans of the core game, and then funny enough, they too grow to dislike Universes Beyond because of how many other brands they don't care about are pulled in. So here, because D&D is objectively the most popular, widest-reaching tabletop RPG and also the greatest gateway to every other tabletop RPG, and as someone who does not often play with official D&D character options anyway, I personally don't care if D&D character builds are diluted with bizarre combinations like the Krabby Patty Fry Cook Fighter subclass. Cause that D&D SpongeBob Universes Beyond will get thousands, and after enough crossovers, millions of people to read their first tabletop RPG books. Then maybe they find a game master through that new section on D&D Beyond where they might discover Dark Sun or Joe Manganiello's new setting, and they'll love the cover art so much that when they eventually stumble upon a Shadow Dark Reddit post or YouTube video, they'll start supporting an indie tabletop RPG that they never, ever would have even heard about if not for D&D SpongeBob bringing them into the hobby. So as of this moment, I'm cool with however the all-powerful Hasbro overlords decide to mangle the possible character combinations in official D&D. Wait, what's that? Do you hear that? The out-of-this-world brand crossover that nobody saw coming. D&D meets Star Wars. Star Wars. In the same presentation, another momentous marker in the timeline of D&D history. Forevermore, there will be D&D, and then D&D Universes Beyond. 50 years, 52 years of fantasy gaming, sure, with the occasional dip into a related genre. And then, for the rest of time, D&D merged with whatever's trending or handpicked. As to be fair, Star Wars is fantasy. There are wizards and swords and mysterious monsters. They just happen to be like laser swords, and there are spaceships. Okay. But it's fantasy. And yeah, when I talked about this with Grace World Destroyer, my wife, who loves fantasy and tabletop RPGs just as much as I do, her immediate response was, remember when we had those 3rd edition D&D rulebooks and That was everything, and that stuck in my head. That was everything. The entire world of TTRPGs for us at that time was small and cozy with our 3E rulebooks. Even though it was like 2016, those books were already old, and we had already played D&D, in air quotes, for a couple years at that point. 3E was just the first set of rulebooks that she dug into as a game master when we were truly starting to play with official rule. My point is, even before this Star Wars announcement, I already had a warm and fuzzy, nostalgic feeling for that time period of our gaming history about 10 years ago when D&D was a small world, growing for sure, but still small. In fact, plug for next week, kind of a spoiler, maybe skip 30 seconds ahead, but my next video, I had so much fun making this. It's in the authentic style of 2008 YouTube, so almost 20 years ago, and I review, if you could even call it that, the D&D 5.5e Player's Handbook as if it just came out back then and I'm a new player flipping through their first D&D rulebook. And that's it. For the same reason that video felt very special to make, and I'd love to make more like it, and that I think the look and feel of that video, just a guy fumbling through their first D&D rulebook in pixelated 480p standard definition, I think it will resonate with a lot of people, and it will be cringe to a lot of people, and the algorithm might hate that it's a 480p video, I don't know. But that feeling is the same reason it feels jarring to hear in the same presentation that D&D gets a Gygax back and it gets the Force. Wow. Never tell me the odds, am I right? Actually, there it is. If the D&D Star Wars book does not have a character feat or a rogue subclass feature called Never Tell Me the Odds that allows you to change a die roll or something, then sure. Then that is proof they're not even trying, it's all cash grab BS, and Outrage Mail channels are correct, because it's right there. You have to use that. It's right there, man. But you know what? This Star Wars thing will get some amount of people who otherwise would have never played a tabletop RPG to discover Starborg by my friend JP Couvert. So for now, yes, I stand by my initial impression. I'm so glad that I have my memories of D&D as its own thing. But going forward, Universes Beyond seems like a worthy cause, a worthy sacrifice, perhaps, to draw vastly more people into the wonderful world of tabletop RPGs so they can share in that feeling of fumbling through their first tabletop RPG book. And if nothing else, yeah, all the Outrage Mail creators and the D&D character build-based YouTube creators will eat good for a long time. But I'm an open-minded man. Please tell me in the comments, what do you think about these announcements? What are you most excited about? What do you think or feel about the Universes Beyond opening a Pandora's box of intellectual property to D&D and the TTRPG hobby? Because I'd love to make a follow-up video reading through what you and our little chunk of this community thinks about these historic changes to the game of D&D. Then give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative, maybe check out this cool vid on your screen, and say thanks to the amazing and intelligent Patreon supporters and YouTube members who make these videos possible. Keep building.